Thank you. I think, do I need to do something to get it up on the screen? Thank you, and I'm glad to be here today. My name is Søren, and I was part of starting this journey of Go Shoot Games 7 years ago, but before that I've been working in the game industry, big and smaller places, and when we started, I must admit I had no idea what it meant to build a game alongside a community, or how to build a community. We just had a deep desire at GoShip to do this open development and involve a community, but of course we needed to build it first. So this talk is divided into two sections. First, about how we built the community, and then how we use the word exploited the community. It's a bit of a bad way to say it, but leveraged it, used it, got a lot of good things back from it. You can say today, I would say it is a complete symbiosis, a work together with the community. But let's get started. I will not talk a lot about the game itself, Deep Rock Galactic. I guess quite a few of you already know about it or have maybe even played it. So it's not a design talk. It's not a talk about the game, but of course the game is still very much part of this community and this talk. As I said, it started 7 years ago. These 6 lovely gentlemen with me on the site there started after Microsoft closed down a company in Copenhagen called Press Play, and Microsoft had actually tried this thing about doing open development as Press Play, but it turned out to be pretty difficult to do with a mega corporation hanging above it. And we really wanted to see if we could bring that to the next level. We did a PR strategy. This is an actual document that I found from back from when we started. How should we announce this? What should you do? Again, we came from companies where the standard is that you're pretty secret about things, and then when you're sure that this is going to be good, then you build up a lot of hype and PR, and then you put out a big trailer and a big splash, and keep building up hype, and then all of this happens rather shortly up to a launch, and yeah, so that was the classic. And in the end here, we ended up with something much simpler and quite scary actually, deciding to just start put out stuff before we felt comfortable about it, and then get some feedback, because if we keep it secret, we won't really, how can we build a community around something that's secret? So no secrets was our main principle about open development. I would say today we are actually way more secretive about new stuff than before, because today we have a lot of people following us, and if we say something and we can't follow up on it, then it's not so good. So we're actually less open somewhat today than back then, but we still appear to be open at least. And then, as I said, leverage the community and be visible, so people can actually follow us and give feedback. So building this community, again, not knowing anything about it, we simply just starting out shooting with a shotgun. Shot of all of these things. We tried all kinds of things. And this is, of course, not in the first month. This is across the first 2 years or something, or a year and a half. And then we just did more of those things that worked or stuck. So we shot out, put out information, a lot of it the same in various places, and then, oh, there's traction over in this Facebook group, let's do more there, while this thing over here is not really doing anything for us, so let's forget about that again. So that was the approach, you can say. One thing that worked for us was very early on starting a newsletter, good old sign up with your email. And what we could use here was the lure of getting access to a closed alpha version of this game, of Deep Rock Galactic. And that worked pretty well. People were willing, they wanted to sign up because of the chance to get that. And one of the places where we got a lot of sign-ups was actually from other developers. So that was one of the earliest things I learned, and I still think that's quite true, that when you are developing new games, you will post it in forums that are for game developers, and they will probably be part of your first community. So it's a little bit inbred thing, you can say, but it works. And we got a lot of traction comparable to what we expected in these Facebook groups here. Then we kind of accidentally started this journey alongside Discord, started its trajectory towards high success. So we started Discord server, and we got in some fans in here, or future fans, so the part of the community in here, where we could directly communicate. And it quickly appeared to us this we need to use Discord as our like central place, and then all the other places will lure people into Discord. So we started also in the newsletter to kind of like direct people to Discord and so on. Today, because of this start where we kind of started before almost everybody else, Deep Rock Galactic Discord is one of the 10 most active Discords in the world, which is crazy. More than 500,000 users in there. Then we went to PAX East, and we had been at other places, but this was the first place where we really could kind of see and feel, like meet and greet, talk to, shake hands with future fans, right? And they, in this case, an important part here was actually confirming that we were onto something. I personally had, when I got into the team here, I was like, only dwarves? Isn't that a little bit limiting? But then here it was, I was completely, my doubts were gone. Dwarves are awesome, and we don't need anything else. That's all. So that was what we learned, and we also got like this, who are our fans? How do they look? We did not like on a sign up community building size of, compared to the effort to go to and the money spent to go to an event like this, the return on investment in actually building your community is not very good. But it's good to do at least once in your journey to just get that feel of who are your fans. So this is the curve for sign-ups to our newsletter. So it starts really slow, and then for reasons it takes off at some points, and then it stops again. And this type of curve on interest or how things evolve is pretty well known. It's kind of called an S-curve in business life, an infancy, expansion, and a maturity phase at the end. So we'll be able to recognize this in all kinds of situations. So for our sign up here on the newsletter, we had some specific happenings. E3 and the Twitch streamer Lyric showed our game in June, May, and as you can see, it quickly doubled our sign-ups in a very short time. And then towards the end, when we are launching the game, there's not really any reason to sign up for a closed alpha on a game that's launched. So obviously, interest for our newsletter dies out. And at this point, we also decide to stop using the newsletter actively and just use Steam Post and Discord and so on. So during our build-up of the community, we used this circle here, this growth circle, where we send out Steam keys to random people on the newsletter list, semi-random, some were selected. These closed alpha builds then ended up in the hands of some influencers because some of them were also signed up, and of course when we knew that, we chose those and they were randomly selected. And then we had a Steam store page where you could cause wishlist, and that kind of got into a situation where people wanted to saw some of these videos from the influencers, and then they wanted to get into this closed alpha because there's only a few hundreds in the beginning that had access, and then that resulted in more people signing up and so on. So we had this circle where we kept making new builds and getting more signups. And this worked also because we actually had no NDA or nothing. We just allowed everybody to stream. You can go and find some of these very, very old videos on YouTube still. And that worked for us, but it's quite scary to do on a game that's clearly not done at this point. This was when we had the first closed alpha built out. I think we had been working on this for 7 or 8 months or something, so it was really, really early stuff. So the lessons learned on how to build a community. So as you could see in the graph, for a very long time it's not really moving. So you need to be really patient, and you need to celebrate each new sign up and say, yeah, now we have 10, now we have 11. And then you also need to take in the whole team for this. So it was not only me, but everybody was on Discord and talking with the fans and so on, and it's kind of many people involved in the team to do this, and we actually, one of the first hires we had was a community manager way before we launched to help manage this. And then this thing about actually meeting your fans, both on Discord, talking directly to them, but also in real life at events, helps you get better knowledge on who they are. And then the last one we used here was incentivizing signups, which is important because people are a bit lazy and on to the next thing, and you want to have something, a reward for what you do. It's like a game, right? Want to have a reward. So a Steam key is a pretty nice reward. Now today, of course, the Steam has changed a bit, so there are playtests. It can work a bit like the same, but you could still, before that, do a smaller scale version of what we did here. Now, having built this community and launching the game, we knew that we needed to build trust. And this was because early access back in 2018, when we launched, did not have the best reputation. There was a lot of games that had been in early access for many, many years, and will they ever come out? There was also a lot of games that had been abandoned. And we felt that we needed to really quickly establish this will not happen with Deep Rock Galactic. We'll be there for you, we'll follow through. So we implemented very, very fast production cycles. Actually, this one is a bit into where we have been in 6 months in, I think, where we had 1 month production cycles with stating roadmaps, with headlines, and internally setting this up with a bit of planning, a bit of whiteboard, Trello setups, produce some stuff, get it out into an experimental branch, let the fans comment on it and play it, give feedback, and then get it out. Initially, actually, these production cycles were only 1 week, and that, of course, meant there was good high limit on we couldn't really do a lot in a week with no new deep systems or anything. But it did allow us to prove to the audience or the fans, the community, that we were able to react fast on their feedback and implement. And we still have that reputation today, where fans will say that we are extremely fast at reacting when something goes wrong and so on. And we still somewhat are, but of course our production cycles are 6 months, right? But the perception out there is still based on this early buildup of trust. We also constantly under-promise and over-deliver. So when we do the roadmaps, we are not putting in a lot of details. It's mostly just some headlines, can start some dreams and imagination in the community about what this could be. And then we make sure that we absolutely sure that we can deliver on those. And then we add on a lot of stuff on top of that. So there's always a feeling when it gets out that, whoa, it's double the size of what they promised, and then people are happy. So we are still doing this today. And actually the last one, this is an old version of the roadmap, as you can see, of course, on the dates. And this last part here, we kind of regretted part of that because there is some of that, like the exploration mode never happened. So we actually removed that from the roadmap because we could feel that that was actually over promising a little bit. When you build the community and to build trust, you really need to learn to listen, and it's pretty natural. You are quite interested in what the fans are actually saying about the game. So I think this is not something you need to force in a team, because if you are interested in your game and you feel for it, then you will be interested in about what everybody writes about it. Because you need to diversify where you read about it, because what people write on Reddit is not the same as what they write on Facebook or Discord maybe. So you need to take in various sources, or you also need to take in there is always a very vocal minority, and that needs to factor in, and these are often the most hardcore of your community that have played the game the most, and not very few are representing the new player experience. So that's there's some balance here in cannot just see, okay, most people are talking about this, then it's not necessarily the same that it's the most important subject for the game. We also, on top of this, had some in-game surveys. So when you close down the game, there's a box saying, hey, click here to take a small Google form thing. And we got quite a lot of feedback on this. It actually surprised us how many were willing to click through and give us some feedback. And initially, that was extremely helpful to us in terms of, sorting out in the noise of the written feedback from the forums, where we could see statistics and say, okay, 80% of 10,000 people that's answered our survey, they want more guns. Okay, let's give them some more guns. And that's very valuable when you get up into those numbers. And then listening is also seeing what the players are when they're hacking your game or they're creating mods for your game and they're expanding it. You can go in and look and say, hey, okay, they really want that modification to the game. Maybe we should make it official. There are a few of the mods done to Deep Rock Galactic that we actually implemented. And of course, you also need to prove that you have listened to the community. So inspired by some other good indie game developers, in the patch notes we are putting in these community requests. So the community can see, okay, this part has been specifically requested and we have lived up to it. It also very often happens that fans are imagining new things, and then they post those ideas maybe, and then on Reddit or where else, and then we implement that idea, but not because they posted it, but mostly, almost always because we got it ourselves naturally and put it in. Of course, we sometimes looked a bit at it and say, okay, that fan will probably be happy now. And then when we release it, they will often take credit and say, yeah, they listened to me, they did it because I wrote it. And we are never saying no, we're never denying that. We're never saying that's not, this is our idea, this is not your idea. We're just letting them have that and say, yeah, fine, you can take credit for that idea, that doesn't matter. So that works pretty well as a way of, you can say, listening and proving it without necessarily doing it in that direction, that order. So the other half of this talk is then about this community. What can they do for you? And this has been, there are some stuff in here that I for sure did not have any idea about when we started. And none of us on our team had the imagination to think what they could do. So what you normally think are these two things. They can test, they can find bugs, and they can give you feedback on, is this fun or is this not? They can give you ideas for the game. So this is an old Trello way back where we let players just add in on the Trello board all kinds of ideas, and then I don't think we looked much at it, but at least there was a lot of stuff in there. And what you end up getting is a lot. And then you need to look through it and find the quality part. And this goes both for ideas and for general feedback, but also for finding bugs and so on. So the bigger your community is, the more you'll get, and the more work it is to find the quality stuff in this. And this has actually been a bit of a journey for us to figure out how to, for example, get good bug reporting. And on these idea suggestions, we just basically gave up. It's just too much. But we still allow, again, players to do it. So yes, the community has the power to test, the power to give feedback, and that alone is almost worth you building up a community and having a good conversation with them. Or actually, on a small note here on suggestions and design and feedback, we have a few rules around how we interact with the community. We allow everyone on the team to do it. But if you interact in a public way, where it's in a big Reddit thread, for example, or something, then we are never taking any design discussions. We are never saying we don't like that and trying to do arguments or anything. We just don't do it. We say, hey, thanks for pointing these things out. We'll take it into consideration, and then we'll figure out how to solve this problem. When we do, a lot of our chats is also on a one-on-one direct DM, direct message basis. And there, of course, we can do more, like actually go in and with some fans have some design discussions. But on the more public level, where everybody can go in, then we stay away from it. And part of this is to make sure that we are in complete control on a creative side. It's us, we decide, and we are never letting the fans vote on anything either. This is not a done by committee thing. So those are a few rules on this that we kind of implemented. Now, one of the more surprising powers were the power to translate. And I tested this out very early on, and I saw a few other games doing this, and then I found the tool called Crowdin. It's a platform for translating, and I saw some other games having some sort of success with this, and I said, okay, let's try it out. Let's see if this works. And we put all the text in the game on this site, and then again, it's the same philosophy of almost all the other things. No NDAs, no nothing. You can just sign. You don't have to sign up. You can just be a member of Crowdin. You can go in and you can translate stuff, and we'll get into the game. And there's a lot of languages I do not know, so I couldn't really check it. We just hoped that it was okay. It turns out to be pretty damn okay. Today we have 25 languages completely translated by the community. There are more words in Deep Rock Galactic than in The Hobbit, so it's a huge work for some of those that are starting up a smaller language and they're on their own. Some of these we have kind of said that have a check mark in the game that they are like officially they're done. They're always close to complete, while others are more work in progress stuff, based on some of these percentages that we have in here. And then how Crowdin works, that makes this actually work, is that there's internally in Crowdin, there's a voting system, so the users in here, they vote on which translation they think are the best, and then there's also proofreaders and so on. So all in all, during all these years, we have had extremely few incidents of people misusing this. We have had some tests where we had professional localization companies test some of the languages. They always come back and say, yeah, it's about 80% good, we can do it much better, pay us to do that. And then we say, thank you, but no, thanks, we're fine, 80% is fine. I have looked through our reviews, and maybe one or two reviews in for certain languages are like, this is poorly translated in my language, but that's out of 150,000 reviews or something for now. So we have no problems with this. Quality is fine, and I recommend this to each and everyone I meet that are making games, because it's the fans that are translating, they are the most dedicated fans you will ever meet. They are so incredibly hardcore at what they do and passionate. So it's really a superpower. Now, the power to promote is, in the end, probably the most important and critical business power of this for Ghost Ship and for Deep Rock Galactic. So this was actually not something we thought much about when we started, but it's something we're talking a lot about now. Now, Ghost Ship recently announced that we're publishing other games, and we are, with the developers, they are talking a lot about what we call earned marketing. So we're not paying for marketing, but we are earning the marketing rights through the build-up of a community that passionately bring on the word. So this is our theory. If the players, the fans, if they play your game, then you will talk about it. You know this yourself. If you're really into a game and it's lunchtime at the company, and then you'll talk about this game to the other colleagues at the lunch table. And the more you play, the more often you will talk about it. If you're not playing this game, but you're playing a new game, very little chance that you will now choose to talk about the previous game. So when you talk about this, what you're doing is that you're indirectly or directly getting friends and colleagues to be interested and eventually buy this game. This works especially well in a co-op game, of course, but we believe it's just generally true. So with this theory, which we kind of developed along the road, it wasn't like something we had when we went into this, we decided to design for retention. So retention meaning from mobile games, get players to be in the game for as long as possible, but in mobile it's mostly because you want the players to keep paying microtransaction and whatever to give you money so you can create a lifetime value of this player, this customer. For us, it's to keep talking about the game so they can get new players in. We are still earning a majority of our money and income on our business on new players. But we are gladly giving a lot of free updates and new mechanics, all kinds of things, content to the existing players so they can keep playing. And our playtime, average playtime and so on has just gone up and up and up over the years. And the same here, this is the player count, the daily active players in Deep Rock Galactic. And as you can see, starting from our launch in February 2018 and where we are today. So this retention has paid off in terms of how many are playing the game. Deep Rock is today, I think, roughly placed at a top, just at the top 50, outside the top 50, but in the middle of top 100 of most played games on Steam. And this is because we just kept building these retention mechanic, of course, on top of a good game, right? It won't work in a bad game, but if you have a good game, add retention and give it away, give all stuff away, and then new players will come in. The other thing we did that we had no idea would work so well was invent this war cry of rock and stone. And it turns out to be now kind of spreading as a virus on Reddit. There's one of the top 10 Reddit bots is called Walking Miner something. And it reacts on people saying rock and stone, then it cheers back. And then this is from another forum where somebody says friendly fire isn't friendly, and then that's a voice line somewhere in Deep Rock Galactic, and then did I hear rock and stone? And then it just starts, and these rock and stone threads, they can just go forever, right? It's even to the level now that some Reddit forums are starting to ask us to kind of can you please tone down on this. I think it's so simple because it's so simple. It works, and because you can write it, I think that's it's really easy to just write, and we have a lot of variations on this, and it gives when people find each other in these Reddit threads in other forums that have nothing to do with Deep Rock Galactic, they kind of I belong to this tribe. So there is a sense of community here that gets really that's really strong with this war cry. I don't know if it's possible to actually mimic this in any way, but at least it has worked really well for us, and it's definitely something that now promotes the game. When people are doing this, we are scaring away some people, but also drawing in some fans. Now these two are less obvious. That the community, the players, they have the power to own, and when they own something, they also have the power to destroy it. So what I mean here, I'll show with a small example. We have beers in the game, we have a bar, and then we did a hotfix randomly back in October 2019, and then down there, third from the bottom, say changed beers to drinks. That was not so popular in the community. So as our QA lead Bjørn says, people are losing their minds over drinks instead of beer in the change list. And this is just one example of a user who's writing about this, and it created loads of like long discussion threads and people being really, really pissed off in our Discord and so on. And they could not accept it. And this was one of the first time where we realized, hey, we do not necessarily own this game anymore. This is like, we can't just change beers to drinks. We didn't actually want it, as Robert points out. This was like, the way we wrote it was also really wrong. Like, we're not now serving margaritas in the bar. It was another reason. But we realized we do not own this anymore, and we have to change this back. And we remedied it. We are not actually going to change your beers into drinks and so on. Chill down. And then people are happy again. So we have done, this has happened several times since then, because we are not always like exactly know what is the most important things in the game that we can't change. But we have realized that when it happens, when we change something that people, that's not good, then we are just changing it back really quickly, because it's not really worth the fight, and it's not necessarily right for us to change it anyways. So the fans, the community, the more they play a game, or the longer they are in it, also because of that retention thing, the more they will feel ownership, and partly also because all these things of us listening to them putting in their translation and so on, it's part of them. And then we can't change it anymore. And if they are not happy about it, then they can also destroy it, like review bombs on Steam and so on. It's powerful, and you need to respect that. So that's something we are talking quite a lot about, how to navigate, and also in terms of like how can we, when we talk about monetization of the game, we are selling cosmetic DLCs, and how can we do that in a good way where the fans that own the game, they feel still that all is good. So it is something we are talking a lot about, this power to own and power to destroy. Now the last one here is the power to dream, and this is even less obvious maybe, but some games do not really allow a lot of this, because the game is just very placed out. It's a super linear narrative game where there is actually a walking simulator thing, and there's not a lot of choices. Then there's not necessarily a lot of dreaming going on, because the whole game is set there. But even then, of course, you can still dream about what could be outside of this game. What if it was bigger or something? Deep Rock Galactic is built on a very, very simple premise of you working for the mining company Deep Rock Galactic. You go to work in the mines, and you are paid to do a really dirt job, and then you get up again and you celebrate that you're still alive by sharing a beer in the bar. And that's it. That's the premise. There's no plot. There's no bigger story going on here than that. And that, we were initially like, is that enough? Should we do more? Shouldn't we put in more? But then we realized that just small things being put into the game started dreams in the minds of players. They started to invent stories around these small seeds that we planted. So we don't have a big story. We don't have any big cinematics or characters as such, you can say. We just have this premise. And then these story seeds that comes from voice and text and gameplay, they get retold by the players, by the community on places like Discord and Reddit and YouTube, all kinds of places. And then they become real, you can say, also in the sense that we sometimes get inspired by that, and then we put in more of it because it's fun. So one of the best examples of this is the story of a story seed we could call Carl. So as you can see here, rock and stone to the bone, and then it says, for Carl. And that's because in the very first release of Deep Rock, we had a rare voice line when you shoot a grunt, I think, an enemy, and then it might say, this one is for Carl. And that was it. That was all we had. And that just started the things like the legend of Carl, people doing poems around Carl and talking about like Carl is our version of Chuck Norris, basically, right? So he's just become so mythical. We have even talked about if we did a new game called the story, The Legend of Carl, it would sell a lot. But we don't want to do that because that would just kill the myth, right? So we need to keep the myth intact. We have been asked many, many times, who is Carl? What's the background story? And we'll never say anything because basically don't know it. We'll just let players dream about this. So new players coming in, they can't. It's impossible. There's no actual canon or law around this. It's only what the consensus among the community is. And it's just one of many examples of these that we have put in. And when we started, again, we take this Carl, saw that, then we started to add more of these, more voice lines. We put in references on some of the beer labels and so on. Then we added more things, and then even more stories happened around this. So summing up, takeaways on these community superpowers and building a community. So first of all, it takes a really long time. In our case, it was maybe 18 months that was just focused on building a community, and that was 18 months from when we showed something from the game for the first time, and then until release. Building trust is key. You need to have the backing of the community. They need to want to go and fight for you. And that takes a lot of time as well, and commitment to show that you are delivering on your promises. Fans are delivering quantity, and you need to really look for the quality, and that's just how it is. They are not internally filtering out these things. They are just pushing out a lot of stuff. Some of it will be really good. A lot of it will just be, well, they're not necessarily developers, so how should they know? Then putting in retention mechanics in your game, giving your game a really long playtime means that this community will be able to live longer and even get on a trajectory as we have, where it just keeps growing as well and becomes bigger and bigger. And then the last one with Carl and all those things that when, and the Rock and Stone specifically, we are adding in small things into the game, and then the community, because they're so big, they are amplifying what you're doing. They're not picking up on all of it. They will select randomly, it seems, what is cool and what is not. And then they will double down on that, and then you can decide to have fun with that. So a very small example of that is another ritual in the game. You can find these compressed gold things, and for some reason our players have decided that you as a player must point to that with the laser pointer. Then the dwarf will say, "We're rich." And the reason is very likely because we only have that one voice line for that. Then everybody who does it will say the same voice line, and then it just becomes silly and funny at the same time. People can do that for minutes and just stand there. And then at a recent update, we added in that the mission control, the voiceover that we have that tells you what to do, she started to comment on that. So then players again, oh yes, they recognize it, the developers recognize what we're doing, and then they're happy and will do even more of this. So they are an amplifier of what you do. Thank you. I believe we have time for some questions, right?
What?
We have some time for some questions if we want to, or
maybe one or two.
One or two questions. Okay. We'll take a lucky one there.
Non-live service game. How would you then do this? Because the community kind of, is the game a short-lived or a short-play?
Yeah. Then it's much more difficult, basically. But we did not design this to be a live ops game. It turned into being that. We did not set up to say we're making a live ops game. And I think it's actually a little bit dangerous to specifically design a game to be a live service game, because you might overstep yourself a bit. But you definitely need to put in thoughts about how can we extend gameplay time, how long it takes to play this game. Of course, it needs to be fun. It's not just add silly grind or annoying grind, but grind is, I have to say, a little bit part of this. We have added quite a bit of grind in the game, but do it in a good way. But some types of games are just not suited for this, and that's how it is. Yeah. One more question, yeah?
When you first started playtesting in Aalborg, did you seek out influencers?
Yeah, so the question is about if we seeked out influencers specifically. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I did post, I looked and on Reddit, there are some specific subreddits where you can post some more promotional stuff. And in there, influencers are also lurking. So some of the influencers we found through me posting in there, and then they picked it up and signed up, and then I sent them a Steam key. Later on, we looked for some of their friends and so on, and we tried to, through them, get contact to more influencers. So yes, the thing though is that still today, Deep Rock is not a very good game for streaming. Specifically, Twitch is our worst platform, you can say, comparable to other games. While YouTube is better, but yeah. So there was also like, okay, this is not working so well, so we didn't push hard on it. And we have never paid any influencers for anything. We wanted them to be honest about it. So, the last question? Can I? I don't think so. No, sorry.
If it's super fast, maybe.
Yeah. A super fast question.
Earlier there was a graph, and it had some high peaks. What was those peaks?
So the graph was with the daily active users, right? And the peaks are when we have free weekends and big releases of like season 1 or season 2. Then we peak. And then of course you get down again, and the whole goal, what you need to look at is the baseline. If the lower line is going up, like so, a peak is fine, but it goes down again. But you need to land on a higher level than you started on over time. That's where you need to have your focus. I think I have to say thanks for the questions and thanks for your time, and have a good game jam.